special welcome. So we begin with a 30-minute guided sit. And then today we're going to talk about mindfulness of mind. So to give you a little heads up, and part of our guided sit will be about that. But we can begin by just taking your posture for meditation and doing what we can to just help your body to relax, help it to arrive. And just soften around your breathing, just appreciating the weight of your body. And let your body relax into its own weight. So we're shifting down gears a bit from kind of being centered in mental activity to being centered in the felt sense of the body. Check that what? It is on. Okay. So this felt sense of the body, you may find there's places of comfort and discomfort. It's always changing. You can notice the contact places where our body contacts the floor or cushion or chair. Feeling that firm support. The body might be warm or cool. There might be places that feel tight or contracted, places that feel spacious. And letting the body be the body. And with a friendly voice, we can check in with the body. How's it going? And this awareness can be quite open and inclusive of any sounds that come and go. And once we feel ourselves grounded in the present moment, grounded in our body, we can open the field of awareness to include the mind. And we'll call it the mind-heart. How's the mind-heart? Maybe there's a sense of openness and interest. Maybe there's some anxiety about something that's going to happen today. Or some leftover hurt from something that happened earlier. Just notice what's moving through the heart this morning. Making room for whatever that is. Taking interest in whatever that is. As we stay rooted in our bodies, we can open to the heart-mind. And as we open to the heart, we can let go of the details of any story associated with that mood or feeling. Come into direct contact with that mood, with that climate of the heart-mind. Is it contracted? Is it buoyant? How's it moving? Is it heavy? Or just open, neutral? This is just about noticing. We can use the movement of our breath as a support. It's always present. It's always anchoring us in the present moment. So whatever's moving in the heart, you can breathe into that and breathe out of that. Big, wide space of allowing. And in this last minute, just notice where the mind has been. If there's a connection to the body. So please take a moment to make yourself comfortable. Feel free to stand if you need to, just get comfortable. Chelsea, how's the sound? Okay, just keep me posted, all right? I'll do my best here. So I often use, when I'm subbing for a program, I use the opportunity to explore things that might be a little murky in my understanding, just to help me to dive in and just get clearer. And I've been really interested in this third foundation of mindfulness, mindfulness of mind. And what are we talking about when we say mindfulness of mind? And so I wanted to address that this morning, and giving, first of all, an overview of a central teaching in Buddhism, which is the 4 foundations of mindfulness, 4 ways that we direct attention to our human experience that are conducive to the deepening of wisdom and compassion and freedom. So mindfulness of mind is the third of the 4 satipatthanas. And this is what the Buddha said about these establishments of mindfulness. He says, this is a one-way path, practitioners, for the purification of beings, for the overcoming of grief and lamentation, for the extinction of pain and sorrow, for attaining the right way, for the direct realization of nibbana, namely the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the 4 satipatthanas. I just wanted to break down that word, satipatthana, for a moment. So sati means to be aware. Sati, mindfulness, awareness. And upatani, kind of the compound of satipatthana, upatani means placing near. So we place our awareness near an object. And upatani also has this connotation, various nuances about being present. So it has this connotation of all this arrives in present moment experience. So these are what we could call 4 frames, or 4 frames of reference. And the first one we spend a lot of time with, which is mindfulness of the body. So if you've been coming to Common Ground, you know we've become very close to what are the sensations moving in the body, what is the posture of the body, what's happening in the body, how is it feeling, and how does it relate to what's happening in the mind. So we have, our tactile world, we have our proprioceptive world, the internal sense of how we're oriented in space. And that's always moving, always changing, and that attention into the body becomes like a root. It's like an anchor. And even though we go on to 3 other foundations of mindfulness, we never lose the root, right? To open to more subtle levels of experience, we need a rooting, a grounding, and the body is there for us the whole time. And just to say, too, the first foundation of mindfulness also includes contemplations of the nature of the body, to to grow old, the nature of the body to get sick, the nature of the body to pass away. It's its own trajectory, and it's a different trajectory than the trajectory of the mind. So we know that distinction as well. So there's the grounding in the body, and the second foundation is what we call feeling tone. Oh, can you hear me okay? Oh, no, all right. I'll try to speak up. So feeling tone, the Pali word is Vedana, and it just points to the degree of pleasure in any moment of experience. So any contact, any sense contact, a sight, a sound, a sensation in the body, a thought in the mind, will have a spike of pleasure or pain or somewhere in between, which we call neutral. So Vedana, neutral, pleasant, and unpleasant. Every moment of experience has this quality of Vedana. And there is power in pleasure and in pain. That's pleasure and pain speak, right? We are moved by pleasure and pain. So an entire foundation is dedicated to noticing this aspect of our experience. So Vedana. And then the third, which I want to talk about today, is mindfulness of mind, or mindfulness of mind states. And this is, it encompasses thought, but it's not so much about thought as it is about the climate of the mind, the mood of the mind that underlies thought. So if you kind of think of like that classic metaphor of the iceberg, right? You have the tip of the iceberg that shows, that's like the thought. And then mindfulness of mind is what's stirring beneath that kind of gives rise to those thoughts. So mindfulness of mind. And moods encompass our experience. Right? It's like a 360-degree filling the landscape. So when we're irritated, right, it's like we have a lens of irritation as we move through the day, or when we're really open-hearted, kind of we move through the day with that filter. So it's more subtle than our thoughts, right? It's more quiet than our thoughts sometimes. So this is what the Buddha is also pointing to, mindfulness of the climate of the mind. And mood is an activity with form. It has a form. So when when the mind or heart, we call it the mind-heart, is contracted, it has a form in our experience. It has a form in our belly, in our heart, in our throat. The experience of rage, the form, the shape of rage, is really different than the shape of generosity or the shape of grief. And we can get used to the terrain, like how it shows up in our embodied experience, how this tone, and it's a whole range of tones that we can attune to on a physical level. But to know that it impacts what we feel in the body, it impacts our perceptions, it impacts our thoughts, so moods. And then the last foundation, there's not a good translation for it, but we'll just call it dharmas. And this foundation involves becoming aware of mental processes. So it is more the realm of thinking and the presence or absence of what we call the hindrances and the factors of awakening. And this foundation helps cultivate insight into the workings of the mind. That will be for another day. But within these four foundations, the path is such that we can dig into any foundation, right? We can dig into the moods, we can dig into our body. And it will all be effective, like the rest of the path will unfold. So it's not like we have to hold everything. So there's the Buddha offers a metaphor of a pile of dust that sits in an intersection, like a four-way intersection. And whether the chariot comes from the north, the south, the east, or the west, that pile of dust, which are the afflictive tendencies of mind, will be dispersed or disrupted. So we can come from any direction, and it will unfold for us in the way that is needed. So mindfulness of, I'm saying mind and mind-heart, but the word is actually chitta. It's a Pali word, and there's not a direct translation because it means both the mind and the heart. There's one word, like the one experience of the chitta. And it's not an easy word to talk about or to translate, but I'll do my best given what I've read and understood in my practice. But it's like the deepest part of our consciousness. It's an inner space of experience we call mood, cognition, thought. It's the seat of our sensitivity. It's where impressions land. And it's where we suffer and where release from suffering can be understood. So that's our chitta. I've just been sort of, I don't know, it feels both like a blessing and a curse, the sensitivity of the chitta, of the heart, doesn't it? Like it can be so painful, so like I don't want to be this sensitive. But we can also appreciate, wow, we are this sensitive. The heart is this sensitive. I was walking around Lake Harriet. I've been doing that lately and just enjoying the creatures, you know, and there was a little pod of newly born ducks. I think they were like so tiny. They must have just been born. And I just wanted to look, and I took a step closer and just, you know, how they just all, and just kind of swam away, right? And I wasn't even in their line of vision, but I was like, oh, that's like the chitta, like just this sensitivity, just everything lands. So the chitta can be heavy, light, contracted, expanded, concentrated, scattered, angry, tranquil. Right? This sort of climate, this mood that fills our experience. And it can become easy to fully identify with that mood, like I am that thing. I am swallowed by this particular mood in the mind, this depression or this buoyancy but with practice we can come to see them for what they are, which are visitors, right? They come and go, like all phenomena. They come and go, and they're not personal. You know, thinking of them, we often use the metaphor of nature, right? Like the weather, things come and go. And with our practice of noticing chitta, you know, the tendency is to get hooked into the details of our story, into the details of the thinking, right? And to not notice what's fueling that activity. So when the mind is hooked with some story, and we all have them, right? That they come up again and again and again. Like the practice is to shift from the story, which really doesn't change, it really doesn't go anywhere, it's just a preoccupation, and to sink in, to go down into what's beneath that story, and to make room for that, to take interest in that. And it will be a struggle because right away that the strength of that story will just pull us out, and then we come back down, and it will pull us out, and we come back down. What's moving in the heart? And this is where the body becomes really useful, like that rooting, as I was saying, kind of and what happens is we get to know the terrain of that mood in the body, and it becomes familiar, and we can develop a confidence that, oh, I know this. It arises and it passes, and it's like this. I've been here before. And so there can be a little space between that mood and the knowing of the mood. Our practice will show us that. So we learn to hold a mood in our attention. How is it in the body? How is it in the space of the heart? Ajahn Chah uses that term, the squeeze of the heart. We can just be with that squeeze, as painful as it can be sometimes, but just being on that felt energetic level, the squeeze of the heart. And to remember, this is everybody. This is universal, the squeeze. And as always, we can call on compassion. I just have an example of being absorbed into a mood. I was on a retreat with Sayadaw Upandita many years ago, and this is a long retreat. I think it was like a month and a half, and he's a quite an intense Burmese teacher, and things were pretty charged. It's a pretty, what do you call it, a pressurized container where those moods of the mind, those old wounds, whatever, they come roaring. They come roaring to the surface. And so it's interesting when we make space, like what reveals itself. And but I remember one afternoon, I don't remember the train of thought, but I was so convinced I had just wasted my life. I was filled with regret. And I'm hitting my mattress, and really, it was just a peak, a fit. And I have to be gentle with myself. It's like an intense retreat. But it was like I was attached to a notion in the mind, right? Like I'd completely lost contact with the fact I was in this beautiful space, completely safe, completely protected. I was 35 years old, and my life is over, like whatever. And just, yeah, and there was another practitioner I saw one day in the hall. She's standing in the hallway still, and she's holding her shoes, and I just could feel she's gonna combust. And she throws her shoes on the ground, and it's funny, but it's not funny, right? In the moment, it's horrifying, but it's like just to, and I was a young practitioner, like not convinced yet that moods come and go and that they're impersonal. Like it was like, oh, just right in there. But now I would say, oh, this is a narrow mind. This is a contracted mind. And that recognition protects us from the ways we fabricate the story of our lives into something solid. And then later on that same retreat, I had the most sublime sitting, the most refined, the most beautiful. And even during that, I was, I'm changed forever. This is forever, So, okay, no, this arises, it passes. And so seeing that arising and passing, we develop a vantage point, a perspective that's really allowing, that really understands, no, it has its causes and conditions, and it's okay. There's a word, a Pali word that I learned recently, which is new to me. I'll share it with you. It's chitta mudita, which means plasticity of mind or malleability of the chitta. It's compared to leather that is pliable because it's been well molded by applying oil. It manifests as non-resistance. I really think this word, non-resistance, is powerful. This word of allowing. Ajahn Sucitto from the Thai forest tradition, he often uses often in his instructions, he says, soften and widen, soften and widen. And sometimes when I don't know what else to do, I just think soften and widen. And for me, that often translates just like soften your body, widen the lens, just widen the mind. And to remember that this path is an unwinding, it's an unbinding. So we're not burdened with needing to construct anything, needing to create anything. It's a matter of undoing. So softening, widening, it's like an undoing. It's a releasing, a stepping back, getting clarity. And sometimes, we want to let go, but we can't let go, right? Sometimes that's not in the realm for us. And that's okay. It's like, so we can just bring our attention to where that contraction is. Oh, the mind is contracted, the chitta is contracted. And that's all. Like this sutta is interesting. It just says, and I'll read it later, it just says, know when the mind is contracted. Know when the mind is not contracted. It doesn't say, don't be contracted, right? I mean, it's different. It's just like knowing, it's comprehending what is happening in the heart. We comprehend. And that's also a relief, right? We just need to be there, clear, seeing, intimate. Bhikkhu Analayo, in terms of this third foundation, he suggests how the practice, it can take the form of, and this is a quote, continuous inward monitoring with the question, how is the mind? We could say, how is the mind heart? How is the chitta? Whatever may happen outside, which is where all our attention usually goes, becomes secondary from this perspective. What really counts is how the mind reacts to it. And he continues, the practice does not in any way inhibit our ability to perceive and interact with what is taking place outside. Indeed, the resultant breadth of mind improves both our taking in of information and our ability to deal with whatever has occurred in an appropriate manner. So I'll read this part of the sutta. The first instruction is to take up the practice of noticing the presence or absence of craving, aversion, and delusion. So these three kind of imprisoning forces of the mind. So craving encompasses all form of, when we attach, we want, right? Think of a claw. Aversion, anything that we push away. This includes hatred. It can include fear. It can include what's not wanted in our experience. And then delusion. So craving, aversion, and delusion. And this is the sutta. One knows a mind with lust to be a mind with lust. One knows a mind without lust to be a mind without lust. One knows a mind with anger to be a mind with anger. One knows a mind without anger to be a mind without anger. Or one knows a mind with delusion to be a mind with delusion. Or one knows a mind without delusion to be a mind without delusion. So it's just asking the practitioner to know, to comprehend, that we don't need to interfere. So lust, or the Pali word raga, it has a literal translation of dye or color, and it means our attachment, craving, sometimes passion is a word that's used. And it could be attachment to material or immaterial, like material things or immaterial states of mind. Like refined states of mind can become something that we cling to. So it's when the mind pushes towards something in wanting. And anger or dosa is all forms of ill will or aversion or pushing away, things that we don't want in our experience. So the mind pulls away, it recoils from something. And then delusion, moha, is a mind that ambles about. Its nature is proliferation. And so this can be, in our experience, just a mind that's just lost. We're not connected to our experience. We're lost in a fantasy. We're lost dwelling about something that happened in the past, kind of these vortexes that the mind can go into. And delusion also encompasses self-view, the projection that there is an immovable, solid me directing our experience, right? Me at the center, at the hub. So that is also considered delusion. So Buddha Dasa, who's was an influential Thai Buddhist monk of the 20th century, he said this: lust is a pulling in, anger is a pushing away, and delusion is running in circles. I'd like to practice this when I'm walking, because there's something about the physicality that reveals itself quickly, like if I'm walking and I'm nervous about something that needs to be done, there can be an energetic, like, leaning forward, right? I'm kind of not on top of my center. There's a gentle leaning forward toward this thing that I'm nervous about. And, and the same thing, like just the resistance, the not wanting of something, the kind of energetically hanging back. And for me, it's just an interesting practice, like to see, I call them leaks, like leaks of attention. And how do I gather to just give 100% of my energy to presence, right, as I walk. And it's challenging because that thing I'm nervous about is very compelling. But the thing to learn is that I'll be more in a place to deal with that thing if, as I walk, I'm right here in the center of my experience. But we don't believe that for a long time, right? We don't believe that. So the sutta, one knows a mind with anger to be a mind with anger. So we notice that there is not an I that's in that sutta. It doesn't say, I know that I am an angry person. I know that I'm not an angry person. But we can practice with that being the subtext that's unseen. Like, we need to fix this angry person that I am, right? Like, that can be a belief kind of hovering beneath the surface. So we want to be just awake to that view. Just awake to that view. I'm a suffering person that needs to be fixed. It's much more fluid, right? It's much more fluid. I was listening to a talk by Ajahn Sucitto, and he just addressed something I want to share with you. It's very powerful. I just lifted this right from a talk. He said, There's a particular transformation that comes through meeting one's edge, the edge of I am. It's not to kill it or crush it, but just to meet it, to meet the I am edge of it. It can be a squirming place, a wailing place, a hard place. There's something that happens when that energy is not criminalized, but seen as a form. When this energy transmutes into an energy of presence, it gives us tremendous strength. So, we're pretty clued in to when we're angry or when we're craving. We know those worlds well, but how do we know when we're deluded? It's a good question, isn't it? Like, how do we know when we're deluded? And I think one basic way is when we lose presence, when we lose our connection with present moment experience. There's some degree of delusion, right? We are absent. And we can call that delusion. I like to call it delusion. If I've been lost in some drama in my mind, I don't want to shame that or anything, but it's like when I come back, it's, oh, delusion. And it's just like, it helps to remind me what I want and what I don't want, what I want to cultivate and what I don't want to cultivate. I don't want to cultivate delusion. I don't want to live in delusion. But we can't help it, right? And so we have to honor, we can have that intention, but we will be swallowed. We will be swallowed up. We can't help that. But when we arrive back, we can remind ourselves of the intention and be firm, have resolve with that. I want to read this description of that Joseph Goldstein offers around just this whirlpool that has so much power to just absorb us. And he offers this great thing. He said, some years ago, I was on a rafting trip on the middle fork of the Salmon River in Idaho. It was my first time going through whitewater rapids. Along with the group rafts, we also had a small one-person inflatable kayak to play around in. One afternoon, as I was happily paddling down the river in the kayak, the guide shouted over to me, "Watch out for the hole." I had no idea what he was talking about. I knew about holes in the ground, but had never heard of a hole in a river before. A few moments later, I knew what it meant. A hole is formed when rushing water spills over a rock in a certain way, creating a whirlpool. So there I was in my little plastic kayak, going over the rock into the hole. The whirlpool quickly sucked me under the water, but a few moments later, the buoyancy of my life vest pushed me back up to the surface. Again, the whirlpool pulled me under, and again, the vest helped me surface. Finally, the hole ejected me into the flow of the river current, and I floated down the stream to where the rafts were waiting. What does all this have to do with emotions and moods? When we're not mindful, the strong force of emotions pulls us under, and their powerful energies toss us about. Mindfulness is like wearing a life vest. Those emotions still come, but we are protected from drowning in them. We no longer take them to be self or I, but rather experience them as part of the flowing current of life. There is a great sense of freedom when we don't identify so completely with every passing mind state and mood. The mystic poet Rumi wrote, "What I want is to leap out of this personality and then sit apart from that leaping. I've lived too long where I can be reached." And I think one of those supports of like when we've been lost or are in the middle of being lost is just to label just to use a mental note, oh, this is foreboding. This is the quality of foreboding. Just to sharpen our recognition of what is happening and just can create a little space. So sometimes I'll give myself the task, and I'll do this in a simple thing like walking to work. I'll give myself the task, like every minute, just give a little label, like what's happening in the mind heart. Just, and it will also tell me like if 20 minutes have gone by and I have forgotten to label. So I'll say, oh, I was not connected. I was deluded. I had this intention. And without any, this is just practice. We make so much space for our practice. Analio, he just said like, oh, we have to treat our mind, our chitta, like a puppy. It's a puppy, like sensitive, like a puppy. And, and it wants to do what a puppy does. And we don't condemn, we don't judge. It's like just so much gentleness, so much understanding, and so much patience. Like we can call on all of that again and again and again. So when we're hard on ourselves, just think you're being hard on a puppy, right? Being hard on a puppy. And I lifted something from one of Mark's talks too, which I want to share because it's so great about delusion. And so Mark said, when the mind trusts its concept of what is happening, the mind doesn't have to be intimate because we are living through the concept, not the truth of the moment. So we ignore things that don't fit that idea. The concept is never the way it is, in the same way that a menu is never the same as eating the food. It's wildly different. I had this experience very clearly. It was it was a long retreat, a 5-week retreat, again in the Mahasi style. And about halfway through the retreat, the teacher gave me the instruction to notice how I was feeling about the other practitioners that were present. I thought, well, that's interesting. That's an interesting prompt or whatever. And the first thought that arose, oh, it's metta. I just, I have metta for them. And it was just so great, like, to bring my attention to how I was, and I think I was quite in my own world. So there was, but to open the awareness to include any reaction, any kind of, so what's going on in my heart in relationship to the folks around me? And it was deeply complicated. Like, maybe it was metta sometimes, but it was aversion sometimes. It was a whole lot of neutral sometimes. I mean, it was all over the place. But it was the most beautiful instruction in terms of not living in my concept of, I am a kind person, and I have metta for all of you, uninterrupted, right? Like that, it was just some wrong idea that I hadn't even seen. So just, and to notice, like with that practice, there was so much vitality in the mind, like so much, not assuming anything, like just wakeful. How am I responding to you? To whatever, just a way to, just enliven presence. Being heedful is the path to the deathless. Being heedless, it's as if one is already dead. That's from the Dhammapada. I'll read that again. Being heedful is the path to the deathless. Being heedless, it's as if one is already dead. Maybe I'll just do a little more. There's a sutta called Crossing Over the Flood. This one is translated by Thanissaro Bhikkhu, but it suggests to me kind of a teaching about right effort and devotion to the present moment and practicing non-delusion in that devotion to the present moment. The sutta goes that in the far extreme of the night, the Buddha is visited by a deva, and devas are like these very refined, kind of ethereal beings in Buddhist cosmology. And she says to the Buddha, "Tell me, dear sir, how you crossed over the flood." And the flood are like the entanglements of the world. And the Buddha says, "I crossed over the flood without pushing forward, without staying in place." "But how, dear sir, did you cross over the flood without pushing forward, without staying in place?" And the Buddha replies, "When I pushed forward, I was whirled about. When I stayed in place, I sank. And so I crossed over the flood without pushing forward, without staying in place." The deva says, "At long last, I see a Brahman totally unbound, who, without pushing forward, without staying in place, has crossed over the entanglements of the world." And that's like that nimbleness of presence, that wakefulness, which is never solid, right? Doesn't push, doesn't sink. It's present and responsive. Sometimes I'm so grateful for my dance training, because we did a lot of improvisation, a lot of where you got to be present because you don't know what's happening. You don't know, you can't control the situation. But I used to do contact improvisation, and this was founded by Steve Paxton many years ago, sort of a countercultural whole form in dance. But I love the beginning where we would just stand with our eyes closed and feel our feet against the ground and notice the soles of the feet, that there was always just this subtle movement. And he called it the small dance at the base of the feet. And even the body, every moment has to negotiate the shifts of the breath, of digestion, the blood flow, right? It's not static. There's constant movement, constant negotiation. And that small dance just was for me like a metaphor of that wakefulness, that things are always moving, to cognize that things are always moving, are always subtle. I'm retiring from Macalester College this year, and there was some social events that I was just dreading, I was just dreading. But it was like, it's like, Wynn, just do your small dance. Just show up, right on top of your tailbone, right on top of your feet. You don't need to push. And just keep your heart open, right? Don't need to defend. Just stay. Just be open and see what happens. Just be interested. And it's like I just have to keep remembering that. Just keep remembering that. It's like I don't need to push. Don't need to hang back. And it's a practice in non-delusion. And it's a practice in respect for everyone around me, that I show up completely for them, for the situation, for myself. There's much more to be said about it, but I'll say this briefly, that as important as it is that we notice all forms of craving, aversion, and delusion in the mind, it's important that we notice their absence. It's equally important that we notice their absence. We want fluency in both. And the truth is when we notice the absence of craving, for instance, there's many neutral moments. We all have many neutral moments, but when we notice that, we bring that moment to life. Right? We can breathe into that neutral moment, which becomes a beautiful quality of heart, a stabilizing quality of heart. And we learn to prefer we learn to prefer that stability. We learn to trust that stability, that wholesome feeling of arrival, of being with even this neutral moment. So just as a last thought before the kids come in, it's a magic of mindfulness when we are mindful of afflictive, unwholesome states that are the cause of our suffering. Those states are weakened. Mindfulness will weaken those states. When we're mindful of these wholesome qualities of mind, those qualities are strengthened. It's amazing. Okay. Okay. Maybe someone can open the door and let the children come in.